Hello, everyone. Hi. I see so many familiar faces. This is awesome. Thank you so much for continuing to support the City of Port St. Lucie and the Utility Systems Department and this quarterly Lunch and Learn event series. We have a new sponsor this year, Environmental One. So we have two representatives that are going to be talking more about this display here. So before I get to them, though, again, I just want to say welcome back for those folks who joined us last year at these events, and then welcome to some of our new folks whose first time this is today. So we have an excellent panel of our industry experts here, and we'll introduce them in just a few moments. But my name, start with me first, right? So my name is Jenny Tomes. I am the Assistant Manager of Utility Systems Education and Outreach for the community. And I am going to turn it over to Jim, who is our Environmental One representative and the sponsor of this event. So he's going to talk to you more about his background with E1 and also this awesome display that we have here today.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just making sure the time zone differences, depending on where I happen to land in the country, could be pretty significant. I'm Jim Welsh. I've been with Environment One now for about 11 years. I'm the technical training manager for the company, and this is what Joe and I get to do. This is Joe Papadakis, and he's the most recent addition to the technical training team. And we work with folks like you guys, the City of Port St. Lucie Utilities divisions, builders, developers, installers all over the world to ensure that our product is not only installed correctly, but then we have a team of support staff after installation in order to help make sure you guys flush toilets and then the waste goes the proper direction. I'm imagining a very important thing for everybody here. And with the distinguished panel of speakers, just making sure your water does not come from this tank. That would also be a pretty significant plumbing mistake. So we take the stuff going out, and a lot of these guys will help get the good water back into your buildings. So again, 11 years with Environment One, and we do one thing, and the one thing we do is exactly what you're looking at. We make one panel, one pump, one tank. This entire unit is a system, right? So we don't sell pumps and buckets. If you guys need a sump pump or something silly to move water out of a basement, go to Home Depot, go to Harbor Freight. When you're working with our company, you're buying an entire system. You're utilizing an entire system. And with a little bit of tender love and care from you guys, these can be maintenance-free for quite some time. I do like to bring up the fact that it is a mechanical component. It's just like a car, so there will be needs for service. And in the event that happens, a red light and a buzzer are going to go off. You guys are going to come to your panel box. You're going to see a little phone number on it, and that's going to direct you to the City of Port St. Lucie Utility Department, and they'll schedule a service visit. So we've been around for about 53 years, and we built this technology, low-pressure sewer. Again, it's not really referencing the style of pump that we are. It's a technology that helps move sewage from a community in a completely sealed system to a wastewater treatment facility where then it is processed and then disposed of in a correct, environmentally safe fashion. So again, back to the whole installation mindset, if the system is installed properly, there is no leaks in or out of the system. So that allows the waterways, the streams, the ponds, all of the outdoor fun, especially in the state of Florida where you guys have more coastline than most of the entire country put together. It keeps all of the water blue, and it keeps everything growing and healthy as is. With the investment that Port St. Lucie has made in us, we have positioned Joe Papadakis here locally. He's now living as a member of your guys' community. We've been with Port St. Lucie at this point for about 2 years. Right now, I would imagine most of you look out of your windows or out of your front doors, you'll see a very large green fiberglass lid. Over the next 2, 5, 10, 20 years, this is the new product that you're going to see the Port St. Lucie team install. You'll probably see their faces all around the community as we're working through the installations and then the individual trainings. Please, all of you, don't ever hesitate to stop and talk to any of us while we're out in the community. If you have any pointed questions, we're always here to answer them for you. There's also a ton of good customer-facing literature that Jenny and her team have put together, web-based. There are handouts. There are QR codes that you guys can pop your phones out and scan them. Just to make sure that any possible question that you guys have with how do I use the system, how to interact with the system, if the power goes out, what do I do? If there's a big storm that's coming around, how do I better myself and make sure that when the power comes back on, all the sewage is still going in the right direction? So a very great staff of people here that you have around you. And E1, we are going to continue to be part of your project the entire time that you guys have us. So without further ado, I'll turn it back over to Jenny and let you guys talk to the next one of our speakers.
All right. Thank you so much, and what a perfect segue. So again, I said this is a quarterly event, so our next event is in April, and it will be featuring everything over the lunch hour, right? Because that's how we do it. Everything wastewater and sewer. And so we'll have our friends from E1 here again too. So excited for that. All right, so let's introduce our panelists here. All right, so we already met me. I'm Jenny. All right, so down here we have Eric Dickinson. He's the chief operator of the James E. Anderson Water Treatment Plant. So newly promoted to that position. He's been with us for over 17 years now, so we're happy to have him and his expertise here. Next to him, we have Robert Grasso, who is the distribution lead for the Water Distribution Division, so been with us since 2007. His team has been extremely busy lately, so he's got some great field photos to share with you today. And then we have Anissa Dial, laboratory analyst. She graduated from the Florida Gulf Coast University. She has extensive experience in water chemistry, has tracked groundwater with the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, in the Caloosahatchee. So we're thrilled to have her here today, also newly promoted. So she's with our laboratory and compliance division. So water, water, water. That's what we're talking about today. This is everything you ever wanted to know about where your water comes from. It's not just the faucet or Publix or the water fountain. It travels a great distance to get to your water fountain. It travels a great distance to get to your home. So we are literally starting from the ground up today. So I'm going to turn it over to Eric, who's going to tell us about JEA and then the water treatment process.
Thank you. So here at City of Port St. Lucie, our water comes from 2 different aquifers. This is our James E. Anderson plant. It is a total reverse osmosis plant, and it is rated for 22.5 million gallons per day. We have 18 Floridan wells that serve this plant. The Floridan aquifer is where we get most of our water from here at the city. We're pulling from about 1,300 feet deep, and we're pulling from what's called the Upper Floridan Aquifer. And the water there is actually a brackish water, and it has higher levels of hydrogen sulfide and higher levels of salts and minerals in there, and that's why we use reverse osmosis to treat that water. We do a small percentage at our other facility of superficial aquifer treatment, and that water's more like from depths of like 100 feet deep, and that's more like the wells you would see at your house if you had irrigation wells or if you had a well before you hooked up the city water. And those are treated by the lime softening treatment process. So let me see what else I have here. So the levels for the Floridan aquifer where we're pulling from is about 1,300 feet deep. Most of our wells pump anywhere from a range of about 1,000 to 1,800 gallons per minute. The shallower wells that we treat at the lime plant, those wells pump anywhere from 90 to about 450 gallons per minute. So as the water comes into the plant, one of the first treatment processes that it goes through this thing here is called a micron filter housing, and it has a lot of these inside. And this one's dirty because it's been used as a display for quite a while, but these are our micron filters. They're a 5 micron rating, and these filters are going to filter out your sand, your silt, and your sediment, anything like that. So this is like our pre-treatment process, and after it goes through this, like this main job here is to protect the membranes for the RO plant. So this is a cutout of what a membrane looks like. This over here is what a full membrane looks like, but I can't hold the microphone and hold that, so I'm going to just show you guys this. But this is what a reverse osmosis membrane looks like. After the water goes through your micron filters out any sand and sediment, it's going to go into your RO skids, which is pictured here on the right, your RO skids. And then each one of those long white vessels has 7 of these membrane elements inside of them. And the water comes through the end here, and these are all spiral wound and glued to the center tube here. The center tube is called a permeate tube, and basically we're applying pressure to remove the salts and minerals from about 80% of the water. We recover 80% at our facilities, and the 20% that gets rejected carries your salts and minerals across the vessel the rest of the way through, and that goes to what we call our concentrate. And at that point, that goes back down our deep injection well system, back down about 3,500 feet deep. So that pump that was on the left back there, that was what we refer to as a high pressure pump. So that's the driving force as we're forcing the water through the vessels around anywhere from, let's see, at our one facility, it could be at 175 PSI, and we could run it all the way up to about 250 PSI, depending on the age of our membranes and the water quality. And after it goes through our vessels, so the water in the Florida aquifer has that higher hydrogen sulfide inside of it, so it smells like that rotten egg smell. So in order for your water not to smell like the rotten egg smell, we send it through our degasifiers, which is what you're going to see, these taller structures here on the right. So the water, after it comes through the vessels inside, goes through that green pipe into the top of this degasifier. That degasifier is full of basically like wiffle balls inside, and the water cascades down. At the same time, we're forcing air up with a blower, and that does your air stripping or degasifying. So we're stripping out the hydrogen sulfide at that point so that your water doesn't smell like rotten eggs. In this same process you're seeing here, the gas that we're stripping out is going through that top on down into these smaller stacks, and these smaller stacks here are odor control scrubbers. So what we're doing there is we're getting rid of the sulfide smell at our facility before we release it to the atmosphere. And we go through, we raise the pH, and we hit it with some chlorine to kill the smell before we release it. The treated water goes down through underneath the degasifiers, and that's where we make contact with chlorine and finish the treatment process on the water. Once the water is finished being treated, it goes into this tank here on the left. That's going to be a ground storage tank is what we refer to them as. That's one of our tanks at JEA. It's a 4 million gallon tank. And we hold them there on site. And basically from that tank, it goes to these blue pumps on the right. And those are what we refer to as high service pumps. Those pumps are what give you guys the water pressure to your house. And we have multiple of those in series, and they'll come on and off as demands increase or decrease. At JEA, we have 8 million gallon storage capacity on site alone, but citywide we have 26.1 million gallons of storage capable. So if we have like a hurricane, we're worried about a loss of power or something like that, so we have a hurricane coming, what we'll do at all of our facilities is we'll ramp up production to fill all of our ground storage tanks to the max. Just before the hurricane hits, we'll lower pressure slightly and just to conserve the water that we have. In the event that we can't run, we can still give the city plenty of service for days by adjusting the pressure. Also to combat hurricanes, we have backup generators at every facility, and we run those prior to the storm getting bad where we can't drive anymore. We make sure all of our generators are on and running, and we typically don't have any issues with that. We set ourselves up right prior to the storm. So as far as like going out and buying cases and cases of water, if you have city water, the likelihood that you're going to be without city water during or after a storm is very unlikely. The only thing that would cause that would be a big mistake on our end, or if a tree falls over and uproots a water main or something like that. But otherwise, we should be able to produce plenty of water for everybody to still be able to have plenty of water to drink and stuff like that. Any questions? Okay, the question was, how often do we change these filters? These filters, usually quarterly, these get changed. But we monitor what we call DP, differential pressure, and we have a gauge. Usually when our differential pressure gets to 7 is when we'll say, okay, it's time to change these out. But our safety shutoff at our plant is set for 9, if it gets to a 9 differential pressure. But we always change them early just to prevent any possibilities of problems. These are, well, currently at JEA, we're replacing membranes that are 17 years old, but the life expectancy is more like 10 years. So if we take good care of them by changing these and keeping our pHs balanced and cleaning them when necessary, taking care of leaks and stuff like that, we extend the life of the membranes, which that's the meat and potatoes of the RO plant. But we extend the life of the membranes by taking good care of them and being preventative with our maintenance. And yeah, this is a full 40-inch membrane element here. So yeah, there's 7 of these inside of each one of those vessels that you saw earlier, and then they all come with a seal on the end that basically prevents the water from going around the membrane. If the water goes around the membrane because this O-ring or this seal is bad, then you don't get good treatment. That's basically going to let your water just bypass the filter, and that's not what we want. We check those daily when we run them for the tests, make sure that none of that's happening, keep everything running smooth. Any other questions? Go ahead. Yes. So currently, I think we're serving somewhere around 225,000 residents, and our current rated capacity is like 41.6 million gallons per day, and I want to say we're close to that 60% of what we can actually produce to what our demand is, what we're selling, I guess you could say. And there is future expansion. They're looking at building out one of our pump stations off of Rangeline Road. That one is slated to be another RO plant. I believe they're looking at a 10 million gallon per day RO plant building there in the next, depending on flows and construction and how everything goes, but somewhere between, I think, around 2026, they're going to have that plant probably starting construction. They'll start design prior to that. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a two-part question regarding these filters here. What is the PSI that forces the water through these membranes?
So depending on the water quality and the age of the vessels, we're anywhere from like 175 PSI up to 250 PSI. That would be our pressure going in. And then our trains or our skids are a 2-stage process. So it might come in, we'll say your first stage is at 200, your second stage could be at like 190, and then it just slowly steps its way down as it goes through.
And the second part of my question is, how long does it take the water from the point that it enters till it finishes that 2-stage process?
So the question was, how long does it take to get through the 2-stage process, the water? Honestly, it goes really fast. I'm not sure the exact time frame, but that each skid is producing at my facility, it's like 1,385 gallons per minute. So if you're talking about that gallon of water, it's moving through there very fast. At the other facility, I think they're 1,265 gallons per minute. It's a little bit smaller facility, but the water's still moving quick through that part of the process. But the treatment process that happens with these filters, these membranes, is it's like the beginning part. And then afterwards, we blend in with chemicals to make sure we get our levels right. We blend in chlorine and adjust for basically corrosiveness of the water and to meet all of our DEP standards. Go ahead. Yeah.
Could you feed seawater through that system to make it
Okay, the question was, can we feed seawater through it? So this system in particular, no, we cannot. But they do desalination is what they call it when they're treating seawater. This is basically, it's very similar. It's not the same. It's a very similar process, but seawater desalination takes like a lot more pressure, like triple or quadruple the pressure, and it would take a different membrane element to do that.
I just want to add to that. The reason for my question is you first mentioned that the Florida aquifer, 1,300 feet down there,
Yep.
is brackish water.
Yes.
So brackish water is in theory the water that you have in the River Lagoon anyways. And the further south of us you go, they are having issues already with seawater actually entering
The
into
aquifer.
aquifer.
Yep.
So it's not a question if it happens, it's just a question when Port St. Lucie might see seawater entering that as well. So this is why I was asking, does the city then has any plan how to tackle that issue when it happens?
I'm sure it's something that is being discussed probably above me, but it's not something that we do experience what we call well degradation. So the well over time gets saltier, we'll say. You know, the numbers that we typically read start increasing. So then we do a maintenance or a rehab on the well. We're undergoing a couple of rehabs currently. So we do things to address issues like that. We're not seeing issues where it's getting to where the seawater level is yet. We are working on further west also a water farming that will, I think the plan eventually is to start treating that as surface water treatment too. So there is plans in process for certain things like that, but I don't think we're looking at too much of a plan for total seawater infiltration yet, not to my knowledge. Yep. Yes. Yes, yes. So at JEA, can you go back to that picture? We have a deep well on site at JEA. It goes back down to about 3,500 feet deep, and the idea behind that's not the deep well. Sorry, Jenny. You can just go to the big overview one. Okay, so yeah, this rectangular thing over here in our left corner, that's our deep well there. So. The treatment facility is the larger square there, over there, and then over here is going to be your deep injection well. So I'm sorry, was there any other question, or did I answer it? Okay. Yeah, so we have them on site at each facility, but we also have to, everything with water and wastewater has to have redundancy. So we also have some interconnections between, so we can send from our plant. If we have a problem with our deep well or we're doing maintenance, we can send our rejected water to the wastewater plant, or they could do the same thing to us. So see these two tanks here, these two circles on the bottom, those are what we call our blowdown tanks. Those tanks there are for that purpose of, if we need to, those are also storage. Those are also 4 million gallons apiece that we could store water for a period of time while we're working on the well. It's rated for 22.5 million gallons per day. Production. You know, I don't know that. Danny, do you know that? Yeah, you know the acreage of JEA? No. If I had to guess, I don't know, 20 acres maybe? I'm just guessing. I really don't know, though. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, right, yep. And our wells are not all on site either, so it's not like we're pulling all the water from that one spot. They're spread out through like the Torino area, down Glades Cutoff and stuff like that. We have different wells. Similar, we definitely have some that are worse than others, but all close enough together that we can use the same treatment process to treat them. Yep. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
What about our companies have been contacting everybody, and you have too much chlorine, and you have hard water, and you
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. One more, we got Danny with a question in the back. Yeah, I think you got the nail on the head there. I don't know if I need to elaborate anymore or anybody has any questions about it, but I think Danny kind of explained that pretty good.
He's one of our directors.
Yeah. Go ahead, sir. Okay, so the question is, all the water that we treat, is it fed out through Port St. Lucie only or other counties? So we have interconnects with all of our surrounding counties and areas. So we have an interconnect with St. Lucie West, Fort Pierce, Martin County. And typically, it's only fed in Port St. Lucie. But if they have a problem, years back, St. Lucie West had a problem, and we had to feed them water for a period of time. We've had problems where, since I've been employed here, where we had to feed water to Fort Pierce for a period of time. So typically, it's just going to Port St. Lucie. On occasion, neighboring cities, counties will help each other out to maintain water for everybody. All right, handoff.
Don't you have such a great appreciation now when you turn that faucet on, like the lengths it has to go through and how many employees have to be part of that treatment process? I was fascinated when I first started working here. So I don't want to get too into the weeds with this, but my question for you all is, and you notice that I brought our own tap water over there in the jug. In your bags, you each have aluminum refillable water bottles, because it's not a good look to serve bottled water, right? When we want you to drink our water. So before we get to water distribution, surely you all probably can taste the difference, right, between tap water and bottled water. And I would even argue that you can probably taste the difference between different bottled waters. But I just really want to reiterate that, I have all these different brands. I have Dasani, I have Aquafina, I have all these different brands. If you look on the labels, they all say purified by reverse osmosis, which is exactly what he just explained. But they're going to taste different. We have 1,200 miles of distribution system that our water that's treated has to go through to get to your homes. It's that distribution system. You have to protect not only the water passing through the distribution system, but you have to protect the system itself. So there's different disinfectants, there's different things that have to be added to the water. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Flint, Michigan disaster. They did not add corrosion inhibitor. So those lead pipes that water was flowing through broke down. Now you have lead in the water. That's nothing that would ever happen here. We do not cut those kinds of corners, right? So we don't have those types of pipes. No, not at all. But that's the difference. See, these guys answer to the Food and Drug Administration. And again, they're not passing through this huge distribution system like we are. So if anybody's talking smack about our water, you tell them what's up. You say, listen, we've got a huge system that we have to take care of. So that's why there's going to be a little bit of difference there. So I'm very protective of our product here. So I'm going to turn it over to Robert. Again, I said before, his division has been extremely busy, lots of action out there. So if you could talk about some of the responsibilities you all have.
Good afternoon. My name's Robert, one of the supervisors for water distribution. So in water distribution, we have about 30 technicians that are out there to answer your calls for service. That's divided under 3 divisions: meter reading, water maintenance, and water installs. So meter readers, they'll go out, they'll read meters every week for billing, do turn-ons and turn-offs. Water distribution, we keep the water flowing to your taps. So this is what a typical water service will look like for water conversion. The house on the left, they had well water, and they decided to hook up to city water. So when that's done, if the service isn't there, we'll install one, and we'll run the lines all the way up to the house so that when we leave, you have running water. So these are some of the maintenance issues that we come across. Most of our line breaks happen because of contractors. The main failures happen few and far between. Like I said, most of them happen contractors installing other facilities for AT&T, Comcast. This one, they were putting in new water services on Floresta. It happened to be under the road. So when the water main breaks, they tend to do a lot of damage. Some worse than others. So this is what keeps us busy. So when the water main does break, we'll go out, we'll shut the water main down, and then we'll issue a precautionary boil water advisory to those affected. Once the water's restored, we'll flush typically from the hydrants. We'll set up a sample point, and we'll let that hydrant flush until the lab lets us know that the water samples have passed both days, and then we'll remove the sample point and turn the hydrant off or wherever we're flushing. This was a hydrant. They do get hit quite often. This one happened to be by a contractor. They do keep us busy. That one broke down at the bottom, so there was no way to save this hydrant, so we had to put in a new one. So in this particular case, we had to do a shutdown to install a new fire hydrant there. The one on the right, that was the Becker Road. That was a contractor putting a gas main. So that one was quite extensive and took about all night to make that repair. Oh, they're mixed up. So this was the fire hydrant that got hit. Again, you can see the damage from the water main. This one was just an 8-inch water main, and about a foot of asphalt it was able to push up. But we also have, yes?
Is the city compensated when a contractor does this? Is the contractor financially responsible for the cost to the city of repairing?
There are cases, yes, where the contractor is held liable, but at the same time, there's instances where whether the locate was bad, if the main wasn't marked properly, then we can't hold them responsible for that damage. So then we have to make those repairs. And
What percentage of the cases is which?
I don't know the exact percentage. Most of the time, we're able to bill the contractor. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as you can see, just over a period of time, how the asphalt just deteriorated. That was maybe within a course of an hour after the water was shut down. We did have to have the emergency contractor make those repairs for us, just due to the location, being that it was on Becker Road. But we also have technicians that go out and answer calls for service. We divide the city into 3 coverage areas. So they'll go out, answer calls check for leaks, check for pressure, things of that nature. And we do have an on-call technician who's available 24/7. That could be anything from leak at the meter, again, checking for pressures, replacing meter boxes, and valves. We do that too. We maintain the isolation valves. I don't have one with me. Any questions? Yes. Yes. So the question was, do we work with Public Works Department? Yeah. So Public Works, yeah, that's a separate division from us. They'll maintain the roads and bridges. But we do work with them, cases like this where the road is compromised, we work with them to make sure that the repairs are done properly. And that's just a precautionary boil water notice that we will issue out. It'll have the date and time of the interruption. And it's just the flushing the hydrants. We do that as well, and it just flushes an area just to maintain proper water quality. And that's part of the maintenance of the hydrant. We'll flush it out, make sure it works. We can break this entire hydrant down. We can take the weather cap off, the operating nut, replace O-rings. So if this does get hit, it's designed to just break away here to where we can install a new coupling, couple pins, new O-rings, and get that hydrant back into service. But as you've seen in a couple of the photos, if a car hits it just right, sometimes we can't salvage that hydrant and we have to install a new one. We have 6,500 fire hydrants in the city, and that we're responsible for maintaining, making sure that they properly work, not only to keep the water quality up, but for the fire department as needed for fires. Any more questions?
What's the high and low range of pressure in our domestic water system?
Low would be 50, high 80. We try to maintain within those pressures. Yes.
Well, first of all, thank you. We're very blessed to have a great department that takes care of this. I think the average citizen takes it for granted. There's a lot of work that goes into taking water. My questions relate to the flushing. How do you know when flushing is required? And I guess the reason I ask, my block is the very end of the system. We're on the border of Virginia Beach, Port St. Lucie. And you guys have been terrific helping us out because we've had water quality issues. You've installed the flushing system at the end of it. Thank you. But how do you know how often does flushing take place? The whole concept of it is what to know a little bit more about.
Okay, so the question was, how do we know when to flush the hydrants in a certain area? We have another department that actually does the flushing for us. That's the cross connection division. So if you see them out, they're going to connect to the hydrant similar to this. They'll flush the hydrant. They have a schedule, and right now they're out west in the Tradition area. So they just work their way from one end of the city to another. But when you do have water quality issues, they'll go there and get that resolved for you with flushing in the area or the auto flusher, like you said. The auto flusher is designed to just automatically flush the water periodically, just to keep that water quality up. Any other questions? No? Turn it over to Jenny.
Yeah. Thank you. No, this is a perfect segue because you were mentioning the water softening systems and things like that. But, if there is a line break, you saw the destruction out there that some contractors have been causing us lately. But Anissa and her team are very much involved with any kind of a line break. So if you could talk too about some of the responsibilities that laboratory and compliance has. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name's Anissa. Good afternoon. So I guess just starting with the flushing because it's a really good opportunity. If there's a house, like you were saying, your house or another residence that's having water quality issues and that's separate from their schedules, like scheduled flushing, they'll call the customer service line and they'll say, oh, my water's orange or, my water smells bad. And then they'll direct it over to the lab, which is us. And those are called customer assurances. So those little packets, they have like the lavender top on it. That's kind of like our general customer service packet. We'll go out and test the water for our standard secondary drinking water parameters. And those are kind of like parameters that are set by the state, so FDEP. And they tell us these are the general water quality parameters that need to be under. It needs to be under a certain number, depending on which parameter you're testing for, so like iron, chlorine, things of that nature. And then once we go out and we'll see, okay, this is above what's typical for our area in the city of Port St. Lucie, or this is above what is allowable by FDP, then we'll communicate with cross connection and say like, hey, you know, if you guys flush, the iron level will go down, the chlorine may go up if their chlorine's too low, and we kind of go from there. So there's a lot of communication between other departments when something like that would happen. So some other like general common issues we have with water quality complaints is needing to flush your water heater. Chlorine dissipates over time, so like Eric and Robert and Jenny were saying that once it leaves the water plant, there's a large distance sometimes between like the original water plant where it came from and your house. So since the chlorine dissipates over time, sometimes if you live on like the far end or you're around a cul-de-sac or something like that, or you're just really far away, the chlorine will dissipate over time. So you have to come and test it and make sure that it's at an adequate level to make sure you guys receive clean water that doesn't have bacteria, because that chlorine is the major component for disinfection for natural occurring bacteria in your water. So eventually, sometimes it gets trapped in your water heater and you guys don't flush it, or, you know, I feel like I should flush my water heater more as well. But after reintroducing new chlorinated water from the main, so like from your water system into your house, that will also decrease any bacteria and boost that chlorine level if needed. So that's just part of our job as customer assurances. We do a lot more routine testing with drinking water and wastewater as well. So when there is a line break from construction or whatnot, I know AT&T, we've been having a lot of issues with them in the past few years of them installing fiber optic cables. They'll bust a water line, and that's a potential introduction of bacteria from the dirt, from any outside source. So what happens then, it moves into a boil water notice phase. So we have to, the people who are maintaining or fixing the pipes, they'll collect a sample and they bring it to the lab, and we set it up for a bacterial test, pretty much to make sure if there is anything that was introduced in the water system, we need to catch it and make sure we rectify the problem immediately. And then we test it 2 days, so it has to have a 48-hour clearance before we're able to say, yeah, you can go ahead and put their water back on. There's nothing on there. So that's part of how we communicate with cross connection and distribution to make sure that everybody has safe drinking water. Also for wells, Eric was talking about how him and his team, and also over at Primeville, so our lime softening plant, they also have to check routinely the levels of chlorides and sulfates in our wells. So we test that at our lab as well sometimes. Sometimes we send it out if we just have complications for it, but that's tested on a quarterly basis, where we're making sure that the chlorine levels and the sulfate levels are adequate enough so we're not getting things like saltwater intrusion, and making sure that those levels are able to be cleared by our water process and our water purification process as well. Oh yes, we also, where your water comes from, like monthly monitoring wells. So every time that you guys get water, it comes from like an aquifer or something like that. So we, in compliance with the FDP, so the state, will go out on a monthly basis and make sure that those wells that you're getting your water from is stable and there isn't any indication of them being unsafe for you to drink, to make sure that from the source that they meet the state requirements, so that by the time it gets to you, there's no reason for it not to be safe. So it's kind of like checking the water from the source and then checking any abnormalities, so like the line breaks don't, I guess, that they don't endanger you guys from drinking the water as well. And then once all that is cleared, we communicate again with them, and then you guys are good to go. So it's a lot of like behind the scenes work, but it's definitely important to make sure that you guys have safe water. Oh yeah, the water softening system as well. So we have a lot of people who are on water softening systems, and that's like your opinion, or your right to choose whether or not you want one. Our main issue that we have with water softeners when it comes to like customer assurances is it strips the chlorine from the water, and like we were saying before, the chlorine is what's mainly responsible for decreasing bacteria that may grow over time just in your water naturally. So when it stripped the chlorine out of your water, you're kind of opening the door for bacterial growth, and that will cause the rotten egg smell and things like that. So a lot of the times what we have is people have a water softener system and they're saying, oh man, my water smells, like I feel like it's not safe to drink. But as soon as the water gets into your house and gets purified and sits in your pipe over a long period of time, either due to like lack of use, or like people a lot of times say it's in their guest bathroom where they don't use it frequently, or in their toilets where they're not being used because it's maybe a guest toilet or something like that. It's because they took the chlorine out, and as the water sits, bacteria is naturally going to occur. So there's definitely benefits to a water softener system depending on how you like to use it. Some people say the chlorine is too much for their skin or their hair, but it also has its cons as well, and that's something that we frequently hear when we go out on these service calls. Yes? Yeah. Flushing would be great, but you have to make sure your water softener system is on bypass mode, because if you're just flushing your pipes with water that is not chlorinated, you're just going to have the same situation a few days later, or however long it happened the first time. So if you are having that issue, what you could do is put your water softener on bypass mode and make sure you're introducing that newly chlorinated water to try and kill any of that bacteria that might be sitting in the pipes. You can open up your faucets and your bathroom, like your bathtub, since that's like a large quantity of water and volume, and flushing that routinely, and then obviously taking it off of bypass mode if that's what you would like to do, and that should help. Well, it's a case-by-case basis. It depends on your water usage and how often you're getting that. A span? This is all opinion-based, because again, like it depends on how much water you. But I guess I would assume like if you're having the same issue every month, it's starting to smell. I'd say like right before then. So say every 3 weeks. It's really just how often do you feel like your water quality is declining? Because once it goes through that water softener system, we're not really sure what happens to it. Every water softener is different. Yes, sorry. Okay, so the question was, he was saying he gets black particles stuck in like his faucet, and he wants to know what that is and how to fix it. So sometimes, like when we're doing our customer assurances, sometimes you'll get influx of particles, sediment, or if your iron's high enough, sometimes that will be in the water line going into your home, and it will clog your faucets and things like that. So typically in that situation, that's a common call as well. In your little bags, you have this pamphlet, and on the back is the customer service number. So when you call them and you tell them, they will forward it to us, and we can get a work order started, and we'll go out and we'll check to see if there are black particles. In situations like that, so where there might be black particles or high iron, we'll go out and check, and if it's present, we'll talk to cross connection, and that's when we'll schedule a flush to come, and that should decrease the amount of particles that may be in the line. And then also after that's done, unscrewing everything and cleaning it all out to make sure anything within your piping system, like the old water pre the flush, that's gone as well. Yes. Yeah, we have this.
Good information so that the homeowners can understand it's not coming from the city, it's growth.
Yeah, sometimes it's definitely like mold, and mold is airborne. And in this packet, like these are like common issues that we have. We explain it like more in depth per situation. But obviously, if you still have concerns and you put a work order in and you call that number, we'll come out and we'll check. And if there's anything wrong on our end, we'll do what we can to rectify the situation. That's kind of why we're here. So, I'm sorry, you had a question for a while. Yeah.
With regards to the tap water, I think it's wonderful, but some of my relatives are thinking I should be using filters, like a Brita or the water filter from the dispenser in the refrigerator. Are you allowed to say whether or not that's recommended, or is it just a personal preference? I would like to think that if our water wasn't good enough to drink from the taps, one y'all would tell us.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's our whole job is to make sure that it's safe for you guys to drink. It's definitely up to personal preference, especially because sometimes we have people who are from out of state and they're just used to a different quality of water or a different taste, or it's not as hard or as soft as they're used to. So it definitely comes to personal preference. We do have, like, in terms of safety, like bacteria, we have monthly distribution routes where pretty much we go around the entire city on a kind of like a cyclical cycle to make sure like everyone's being sampled once a month to make sure that the chlorine levels are adequate and your bacteria presence is non-existent, pretty much.
And our water's fluoridated as well?
Fluoridated, like, yes. And that's also a state-regulated standard as well, which you can find in your water quality report that I believe was given to you guys as well. Yeah, no problem. Yes.
When you flush out your hot water heater or your drippings from your air conditioner, what's a likely, like, mine always comes out like a white color type of thing. Is that like normal?
Sometimes you have air trapped in your water heater a lot, and they're like really small bubbles, so they'll definitely come out white. And usually, if you get a cup and you sit it on the counter, over time you leave, come back, it'll dissipate. So that's definitely something that happens as well, or air being introduced to the line for multiple reasons. It could also be if you have, in rare instances, you can have orthophosphate buildup, and that's what is it? It's an inhibitor, pretty much corrosion inhibitor. And sometimes if you get a buildup, that will come out, but usually it's like a milky sub, it's a very, very white, like it's like changes the texture, which I personally haven't seen, but we've talked about it as a possibility because we do test for that when we feel like that may be an issue. Okay. You can see the white? Yeah, well, definitely if you want us to come out and test it again, just call that number and put in a work order, and we'll be more than happy to go out and service you guys. You were saying you had a question?
My understanding is that chlorine is a carcinogenic and that it's in concentrated form, it's a health hazard, but I understand the necessity to chlorinate water to get rid of other bacteria, but ideally, my understanding is it's best to remove the chlorine right before
in terms of like being healthy?
Yes, because it's not 100, it's not a 10 because you've got chlorine coming through, which is not healthy for you. But where would you rank the water system here?
Well, I can't speak on other water systems that I haven't worked in before, but I can speak that like I do agree that like chlorine in a concentrated form is definitely like dangerous. You don't want to be drinking that. That's why chlorine gas is dangerous as well. But I think with the process that we're all going through to make sure that we're in state regulations, because that's not something that isn't, we're just adding it out because we feel like that's a great amount. It's something that the state monitors and makes, we have to report to somebody and make sure that we're in a safe level to be able to give it to the residents.
Now, I understand the necessity of doing it, but ideally, it's best to remove it right before you drink it. And I think that's why a lot of these things like, I don't know how good it is at removing that. I don't know. I know reverse osmosis under my sink gets rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I put that in. I changed the filters on regular schedule. But I'm just asking, without that, for people that just use nothing, that just take the water out of the tap, where would you, I know it's hard to rank that. I come from Minnesota where the area that I lived in, the water was so pure. All they had to do is filter out minor things in it. It was tremendous water that you could get from a well. I had a well in the house I live in now before I got city water. And it was really atrocious water, but there was no option because there was no city water at the time. Everybody had wells, and the water in wells was really bad. But at any rate, where would you rank that?
Yeah, for sure.
My name is Danny. I'm the, loud. No, my name is Dan Seguia. I'm the Assistant Utility Director. And the way I would respond to that comment, because we're not going to, it's hard for us to rate, give our personal opinion on things related to this. So I can tell you this, and I've been here with 25 years with the utility. A lot of it is preference and taste. It's no different than St. Lucie West. I told you where I live. You know, I don't have an issue drinking the water, the taste. My wife does. It's preference. She has a filter that she uses, filters the water. What we're required to do, and I think Anissa touched on this, with the water quality testing, with the water quality testing that we do, meeting the EPA standards, you can debate this forever, and it's chlorine fluoride. Every year this happens. We get questions, we answer them back to the public. There's requirements that we have to meet. We're testing the water. We're submitting our samples and sample results into DEP. So it's hard for us. If somebody wants to go out and buy a filter system, and trust me, I've heard all the stories. I've had a particular company come after me because I had a conversation with a homeowner that, and this was in the early days of putting the water and sewer system in. A homeowner was told by a salesperson that they needed this reverse osmosis system and all these bells and whistles. It was like $9,000, okay? So the gentleman buys it, puts it in, starts talking to his neighbors who had recently connected with city water, goes over to the house, drinks the water over there, and now he's upset because the salesman sold him this system, told him that the city water was dangerous, it's bad for your health, all these things. For me, what I say is do your research. You can look online. As you were talking, I was looking online. You can see all the articles on it, and we could sit here and discuss it and debate it forever. A lot of it is preference. We're meeting the requirements. Some people like the water, some people don't. Some people want to eliminate the chlorine taste. So if you don't like the chlorine taste and you're fine putting in a reverse osmosis, in the house to take that out before you drink it, it's a preference. But we can't sit here and tell the general public, you know, you need to have one, you shouldn't have one. Personal choice. That's how I look at it. And our job is to ensure that the water that reaches your home is safe. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. You know, we're doing some studies and research right now because there's older homes in Port St. Lucie. They have galvanized line. Well, we don't have it in our system, you know, these service lines. It's the homeowner has them. You know, so the homeowner may be complaining about the water quality, and a lot of times the lab goes out there, and it's a simple example to show the homeowner. We can show them that the water coming into the home in a 5-gallon white bucket is clear. They go get a glass of water, you know, open up the faucet in the sink, and it's got little particles and things because there's buildup in your line. It's not coming, a lot of times it's not coming from us. But there are times, you know, we have a break, we're flushing, and the turbidity, that's when you see the water, it gets the air in the water and it's cloudy, you know, that's air, that's turbidity. And a lot of times that's why you see us flushing it. We get calls from the homeowners, hey, there's a water quality issue. We go out there, we test the water. If we need to flush, we flush. It gets the water quality back up. Or we may see that the chlorine level in that area has dropped, you know, so it's like we want to turn the water around. So, like I said, there's a lot of things that we do. Bottom line is trying to ensure you're getting clean water, but the rest of it, regarding the taste and all that, it's preference. Uh-oh.
I know my house is an older home where I had to have a well. And like I said, the well water was really, really
Yeah.
bad. So I know the pipes in my home. The pipe that was laid by the city to bring in the city water, that up to the house.
Yeah.
That's clean and good, and that's fine. But once it gets into my house, I've got problems in those pipes.
Yeah.
Because I know they're not, there's crap in those pipes, and the only way of fixing that is to replace all the pipes.
Or-
And I'm not gonna
And it could be replaced or just flush. And this is Dave Reyes, supervisor in water distribution, oversees a lot of the installations. And you said it perfect. If we convert a home over off well, right, there may be buildup in the lines, and you know we leave door hangers asking you to flush like in the tub, somewhere where there's not the aerator or a screen. You know, it's just try to get with the pressure that we're putting through the system. You may be able to scour that line and you know get some of that buildup off.
That's another reason that I installed a reverse osmosis. When I had the septic, I didn't have a choice. I knew
Yeah.
the water was not good water. And so I put it in for that reason, but I kept it in
Yeah.
because I know the pipes over years built up with stuff inside the pipe. And I don't know how long it takes to
Yeah.
get all of that out. It may not ever be able to.
Yeah, and I know there's other people who have other questions, but I was going to say, but that's why I say our responsibility is to ensure that the water we're providing to you is clean and safe. You know, and that's it. As for the internal plumbing part, you know, we can't really get into that. We can't give recommendations regarding filters, different. We just kind of avoid that, to stay away from it. Yes.
About 9 months ago, I had actually salt water coming out of my water tap. And it freaked me out a little bit, and then it went away, and then like a couple days later, salt again. I just thought it was, and I have the reverse osmosis, not true. And it just happened maybe over about a week and a half period of time, on and off.
But this is a perfect example. If you call during that time, Anissa's group goes out there and samples, they can show you what we're supplying you. Is it something to do with your reverse osmosis? It could be. No. We go out, that's a service that we provide to go out and test the water. We're not going to get involved in internal plumbing. You know, we may say, hey, here's the, we do provide you with the test results, but we're going to show you, hey, here's the test results we got. Now, if you're continuing to have this salty brine type of water, it could be coming from, you know, your filter system, you know, something. Now, I don't know if your home has a softener.
Oh, yeah,
Okay. Okay, it could be contributed to that. Say, hey, it's choice. It's choice. If that's what makes you feel comfortable and that's what you want to do, then that's fine. Oh no, yeah, I know. I hear you. Yeah.
I want to know, when can I expect my water bill to be less?
My mic just cut out. It's a comparison, and it's look at and we do this, compare our rates to the municipalities around us, look at the ones that are about the same size as ours, and see, that's what we're constantly looking at is where are we compared to everybody else. But a lot of it is operating costs. You heard Eric talking about expanding, and I mentioned to you about the potential surface water 50 years, 70 years down the road. It costs money. So that's part of what goes into when we do a study to see what our rate should be. Should we have an increase or not?
No, we have a tremendous staff. We have about 300 employees, several different divisions within our department, and everyone is a specialist, everyone is an expert, and we could not function if we did not have each one of these folks up here today. We could not function without each of their divisions. So thank you all so much for being here. These guys are awesome. What an amazing staff. But thank you all as well. Clearly you have interest in this topic. Clearly you are champions, you are ambassadors, you are residents. You're gonna go home, you're gonna tell your friends and family about everything you learned here today. So I really, truly, truly appreciate you spending this time with us. Our next Lunch and Learn is scheduled for April 14th. You all are on my list. You'll be hearing from me again. And for those watching at home, obviously we're shooting video of this today, so if anybody missed it, I will be providing the link if you wanna watch it again, if you wanna get another experience of this. So look for that link from me. But again, thank you all so much. I truly appreciate it. Every one of you in your blue bags, you have a feedback survey. It's just a couple questions. If you would do me a humongous favor, just tell us how we did today. Or if you have any suggestions for future events, please write that down. Please just leave it on your table and I'll collect it from you at the end. Thank you all so much. Have a great day. Pens are in your bag. Thank you.